Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, the Labor Director weighs in on hotels and layoffs. This as the tourism minister expects the country's #1 industry to bounce back in 2 years. Plus, the national security minister doubles down on his comments regarding the missing from Hurricane Dorian.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquim. Topping news tonight, major hotel properties on New Providence and the Family Islands will be laying off staff by month's end. The Labor Director said while unemployment numbers will be high, he's optimistic that in 2 years, the job market will rebound. Jillian Gray has more.
With hundreds already on the unemployment line, hundreds more could be joining them soon. As Acting Labor Director John Pinder said, all of the major hotel properties have given notice that they will be laying off staff.
Atlantis, Bahama, Malia, I got some from Comfort Suite, the Treasure Key Resort, British Colonial Hiltons, Breezes, and the Bimini Big Game Club. All these are major properties that have quite a bit of Bahamians employed who have indicated some level of downsizing.
Most of these properties will begin offering separation packages by June 30th, with others eyeing the end of July. Atlantis has already let go 300 people in its maintenance department, and up to 20% of staff at Bahar Mar could be let go. The Labor Director said health and safety protocols for the tourism industry must be finalized so that no one is turned away. He added that the economy must open speedily to avoid high unemployment numbers.
I know the health thing is very important, but so is the reopening of the economy. We can't afford to have employment rate more than 40% because of this pandemic. So while there's some silver lining behind those gray clouds, there's still a lot of challenges as relates to the health protocols. How are we going to go about doing testings and those sort of things?
The Labor Director added that hotel properties must begin to develop attractive packages or look at simply breaking even until the industry rebounds. Nonetheless, he said he's encouraged by the current projects in the pipeline and said the job market could rebound by 2023. 64 people at a private school have been let go, and with businesses like Luciano's restaurant closing down, Pinder said it all boils down to the instability of the tourism industry.
Everything is a spin-off tourism. Once people who work in the hotel industry are making monies, when they're off, they go and they buy food in some other restaurant or they visit some other entertaining area. They're able to buy groceries out of the food stores. And so this whole thing has a domino effect, you see? And so that's why it's important for us to get this industry open again, get the economy moving again.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
National Security Minister Marvin Dames is on the defense over the fluctuating number of people on a missing persons list after Hurricane Dorian ravaged Abaco and Grand Bahama 9 months ago. Amid ongoing confusion, Dames insisted the public does not need to get fixated on the numbers. Jasmine Brown reports.
The National Security Minister stuck by the numbers released by his ministry over the weekend as he admitted that mistakes were made along the way.
To think that you can come out of the disaster and that you are perfect, it's ridiculous. So can we look back and say we could have done some things better? 100%.
His explanation comes amid confusion over the official number of missing people in the aftermath of Hurricane Dorian. The National Security Minister insisted that the number is 279, despite the fact that Assistant Commissioner of Police Solomon Cash told reporters at a Disaster Reconstruction Authority press conference last month that only 33 people were still reported as missing. Asked why there was such a wide gap in the numbers, Dames said this.
I don't know the reason for that. The numbers that were given is not Marvin Dames' numbers. They are the numbers compiled and taken from the centralized listing. The question is were those numbers from a centralized listing? I don't know. This is the police the police, all of these numbers now are now in the hands of the police. Let's not get fixated on this. And I think, I think sometimes we get caught in a position where we're saying, ooh, something is amiss. What is amiss?
He also insisted the numbers will fluctuate, as he said that's not unusual when it comes to disasters as devastating as Hurricane Dorian.
Just recently, someone came into the police and said, listen, I was out of town, but I still can't find my sister. No surprise. Those numbers will not hold.
Dame said police are still in the reconciliation process, which he said has taken many years in some other countries following disasters.
There were a lot of names taken, and the investigators are now finding out, that many of these persons were not really missing, but they were added to the list because they needed assistance.
Last week, in his first address to Parliament since resigning from cabinet on May 4th, former Minister of Health Dr. Dorian said thousands of names of people reported missing immediately after Dorian were removed from the official list after police took responsibility for that aspect of the storm's aftermath, noting that no explanation was ever given for why the list was pruned. However, in a statement released on Sunday, Dames expressed shock and disappointment in Sand's comments.
He and I had a conversation yesterday. We're friends, and but as friends too, we all have a right to speak truth to power if we feel that we're correct, and that's exactly what I did.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Both opposition leader Philip Davis and PLP Deputy Leader Chester Cooper walked out of Parliament this afternoon after House Speaker Halson Moultrie denied a point of privilege the Exumas and Ragged Island Member of Parliament sought to make. Last week, during his contribution, Cooper said the Bahamas government had never taken a loan from the International Monetary Fund before, and that the Minutes administration's plan to borrow from the IMF would be a first, to which Golden Gates MP Michael Folks called wrong and factually incorrect. Well, as the session got started today, the House Speaker shut down Cooper's request to bring clarification, after which both Cooper and Davis picked up their things and left.
Regrettably, the Speaker, in his all-powerful infinite wisdom, acted as judge and jury and made a ruling on an application he hadn't heard. I brought the application as a matter of courtesy, presented same to the Speaker to give him notice that I intended to make the application. He took it upon himself to not hear it, but to make a ruling on it. This is dangerous for democracy. It's a low point in our parliamentary democracy. Every right-thinking Bahamian should be concerned about it.
It will likely take 2 years before the once bustling tourism industry will rebound after being crushed by the COVID-19 pandemic over the last 3 months. Tourism and Aviation Minister Dionisio de Aguilar says the devastating blow will no doubt have a long-lasting impact, as he expressed disappointment over major resorts deciding to push back their reopening dates. With more on this, here's Jasmine Brown.
The tourism minister says the fact of the matter is it won't take just months for the tourism industry to rebound. He says it will take years.
So obviously this is the great unknown. No one really knows how long it will take for tourism to rebound. If I had to give it an educated guess, I would say 18 months to 2 years.
As for why it would take that long to see the sector rebound, De Aguilar explained that health protocols implemented to deal with the global pandemic will no doubt keep guest numbers down.
And obviously with all the social distancing and all the health protocols that are necessary, you can't have as much business as you used to have and observe the protocols put down by the health department. So everybody's actively looking for a cure to this virus and trying to restructure their business so that it can operate with these new social distancing rules in place.
The tourism minister made the comments outside cabinet on the heels of several major resorts announcing they did not plan to reopen this summer. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis announced earlier this month that visitors will be allowed to come to the Bahamas as of July 1st. But that is not stopping some hotels from delaying their reopening. Bahama President Graham Davis said in a letter to staff over the weekend that the resort would be pushing its reopening date from July 1st to October. The Malia Nassau Beach Resort has also announced it will remain closed until October. And Sandals Royal Bahamian has also indicated that it will delay its reopening until later this year. On the other hand, Atlantis Paradise Island Resort said last week that it is preparing to welcome its first guest to the resort on July 7th. D'Aguilar says while he is disappointed some have decided to delay their opening, he also understood the reasoning behind it.
I think they know better than we do what is happening in the market. They're obviously, they have thousands of rooms. They have an incredible marketing machine that goes out there and tries to get people to book at their property. And I guess they're seeing the load factors are what they are, and they're not initially impressed. And so they're waiting until their book of business grows and they're in a better position to open and to minimize their losses. They feel that they open now, their losses would be horrendous.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Another major resort announcing plans to push back its reopening date and make employees redundant. The move comes as a concern to the Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union, which is now telling its members to expect the worst. Bethany McDermott has more.
We are saying to our members, expect the worst.
That's the warning from Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union President Dorian Woods to his members as the Melia Nassau Beach joins the list of resorts extending the reopening date. In a statement dated June 12th, General Manager Daniel Lozano said, "Due to current conditions, we have made the difficult decision to postpone our opening date beyond the July 1st reopening of the Bahamas." It continues, "It remains our goals to reopen in October." Wood says this is alarming.
Originally, the understanding was that most of the resorts would have reopened once the borders open.
The statement added, "In March, we committed to support you as best we can for up to 90 days. As we near the end of this 90-day period, we will make additional staffing reductions to align staffing levels with projected business volume upon reopening and the future renovation work that will be taking place." Wood says he doesn't know how many employees will be made redundant.
The concern for us again is with the extension or amendment to the Emergency Power Act that actually suspends the Section 28 of the Act that says that redundancies are kind of suspended for this time. We are concerned whether or not these are actual, this process again is actually legal.
Some 400 of the union's members are employed at Melia. According to Woods, the union had hoped Atlantis' July phased reopening would have prompted a positive domino effect for other resorts. However, that didn't happen.
In our minds, with the reopening of Atlantis, that would have given us a positive domino effect. But on the flip side of that, we now see that two resorts have indicated that they're now going to move to redundancies. And so that now seems to be a domino effect in the negative.
And just like the Hilton Resort, executives at the Malaya Nassau Beach say they intend to rehire as many people as possible once occupancy at the hotel picks up. Reporting for Our News, I'm Bethany McDermott.
Many first-year students who had planned on going off to school on government scholarship will have to consider attending UB or BTVI if unable to fund for themselves as the government makes a reduction in its granting of scholarships due to COVID-19. Education Minister Jeffrey Lloyd today encouraged students applying for a government scholarship for the first time to take advantage of the free tuition at UB and BTVI instead.
As you know, government has imposed a 20% discount reduction, what you want to call it, on all ministry and departments, but Ministry of Education has not been spared.
According to Lloyd, presently there are hundreds of students off to school on government scholarships costing government millions, and that the budget cut will not affect those already on government scholarship. Lloyd says government is also giving thought to recommend students receiving scholarships be bonded and required to return and provide service to the country upon completion.
It seems to me, at least, unfair that monies by the Bahamian people should be dispensed to advance your academic and vocational ambition. And those same people that supported you do not have now the benefit of those newly acquired skills. There has to be something wrong with that.
Still to come, calls for an independent probe of Saturday's police-involved shooting. Stay tuned. A prominent attorney is calling for an independent body to investigate police-involved shootings. Wayne Monroe also criticized the commissioner of police for comments he made at the scene of Saturday's incident. Jared Higgs has more.
Let's just call it a homicide because it's a homicide. The issue is whether it is a justifiable homicide or not.
Attorney Wayne Monroe says those police-involved shootings should be investigated by an independent body and not by the police force. He says that's the way things are done in the UK, Jamaica, and Trinidad and Tobago.
I believe that it's time now in the Bahamas for us to move that way. It cannot be proper that the body who is investigating this homicide to decide whether it's justifiable or not.
On Saturday, police shot and killed 3 men after Police Commissioner Paul Roll says an officer was shot at while approaching a heavily tinted Honda. However, Monroe slammed Roll for suggesting that the shooting was justified while speaking to reporters.
The problem with that is it was still an active crime scene, Investigation hadn't completed. He is the most senior policeman. What other policemen now can form a different view and they're subordinate to him?
National Security Minister Marvin Dames called the incident concerning and unfortunate and says it will be looked into.
At the end of the day, justice will prevail.
Monroe says police officers investigating other officers is like him investigating his own son. He says no matter how much he promises to be fair, the appearance of fairness will be lacking. He says the coroner's inquest system is also severely backed up and there are also trial delays if there is an indictment.
So that you could look at these matters coming to trial as much as 6 to 10 years later.
Monroe says given the way police killings are handled here in the country, there's a risk that people can lose confidence in the institution. He says that's what happened in Jamaica, bringing about changes there. The QC says at its worst, a lack of impartiality can embolden officers to act outside the law. In fact, he says he has filed a complaint with police on behalf of Kemp Road residents who say police are targeting them.
Rightly or wrongly, the complaint is that you have rogue policemen going around and certainly representing that there is nothing a young man can do and they can kill them whenever they will. And there's a very real problem if that's not stemmed, because patience will run out at some point and all you need to do is look at Jamaica.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jared Higgs.
All right, thanks, Jared. Still to come, another minister explains why the missing persons list was shortened. Stay tuned. You're watching Our News. Welcome back. The Minister of State for Disaster Preparedness attempting to clarify why the number of persons on the missing list from Hurricane Dorian drastically decreased. Georgia Bain reports.
Questions surrounding the particulars of those who went missing during Hurricane Dorian are once again at the forefront, following calls by former Minister of Health Dr. Dwayne Sands for the government to explain how the number of persons on the list seemed to be drastically reduced. While Minister of State for Disaster Preparedness Aaron Lewis sought to defend what happened during his address at the Bahamian American Association of the Washington, D.C. Mid-Atlantic Region panel on hurricanes. When asked about the confusion surrounding the numbers, Lewis said duplications played a role in the number of names on the missing persons list.
There's an initial panic. Persons who would have been reported as missing, for instance, your sister may have reported her sister was not at home. Your husband may have reported that his wife is not there. Your parents may have reported that their daughter is missing. So one person was reported multiple times.
According to Sands, following Hurricane Dorian, the list managed by the Ministry of Social Services had several hundred names. But after the Royal Bahamas Police Force took over the list, it included fewer names than the number of unidentified persons buried. Lewis said with persons moving from shelters to different islands and even the U.S., it became difficult to keep count.
There are persons whose home was compromised. They left their homes, they went to the shelter. One person would have gone to their home, the home is empty. So they may say, hey, 12 or 13 persons from that home, they're not there. However, they was at the shelter. A lot of persons left Abaco, came to New Providence. They went to the States. Some went to Eleuthero. Some just went back from Eleuthero last night to Abaco. Some left Abaco and Grand Bahama and came to New Providence. So there was persons moving all over that wasn't initially accounted for.
The number of undocumented migrants in Abaco also played a part in the uncertainty in the numbers, according to Lewis.
When we went through the list and we did data cleansing, we realized that there were multiple names or multiple reports given of the same persons. So at the end of the day, and of course, there were some undocumented persons in Abaco. So it was more difficult to account for the Abaco loss as opposed to Grand Bahama. We had less issues with undocumented residents or undocumented persons. So once we went ahead and we did data cleansing, of course, the numbers went down drastically.
Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Bain.
All right, thanks, Giorgio. Still to come, basketball fans rejoice. Find out why after this. Finally tonight in news, a return to play by the NBA has local fans excited. Marcellus Hall has more.
Well, the expected return of the NBA and other professional sports has many a sports fan excited. We had a chance to talk with a number of fans around town, got their thoughts on what they think about it.
It's good to open up and see find more cases because we miss basketball, man. We miss the game, we miss the sport. And at the end of the day, they gotta play good and play better.
We ain't nothing without our sports, you know what I mean? So I'm excited about it. Can't wait to see LeBron on the court. I'm not a Lakers fan, but I can't wait to see LeBron on the court. Some of the other players, you know what I mean? Yeah, I'm excited it's back.
I think in the midst of what's going on in our world, from the protest guys, you know, from what's going on in the United States, you know, sports has always been something that brings, you know, all races together, you know. It brings about family, it brings about continuity, you know, you have a reason to celebrate your team, whether, you know, you're white, you're black, you're Chinese, you're Asian, you know, to me it's the right time to bring sports back. You know, people are sitting home and it gives you something to cheer for.
James going to the rim, kicks to the corner, Green a three to tie, he got it!
See Patty trying to contest that shot from behind, just swiped it over the top.
Oh my goodness! Green for three. Money Green bucket.
So while things may not be quite back to normal, at least there is light at the end of the tunnel. Seems as if things are well on their way. Reporting for our news, I'm Marcellus Hall.
Thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Joaquin. Remember, you can catch Our News on the go with the Revico Play app. Have a good Tuesday evening, Bahamas.